Yeah, there are a lot of people who have made those memes of, Malfurion getting like kicked out a window and Rexar standing like flexing over it or whatever. And that's, some people on ladder seems to be the case. Hunter was very strong already, and Druid took a big hit as the other top class.
All right, well, whoever wins this will be able to stay alive. The loser is going to go home. But without further ado, let's play some Hearthstone. Game one's going to be Mage versus the Druid. What do we got here on our table, Kibler?
Well, as we see from Alliestrasza's opening hand, this is Murloc Mage. This is a deck that had a bit of a breakout, I believe back in Witchwood, actually, just with the printing of Book of Specters. And it's kind of been floating around. Mage has been one of the underdog classes for a long time, especially since the Mana Worm nerf. It hasn't really had a great hold with many of the control decks, but this has been one of the actual premier aggro decks that's been around in the format. And thanks to the odd Paladin nerf in particular, I think a lot of aggro decks that could have struggled against decks like that can actually have a bit of a resurgence.
Mage is exploring all kinds of opportunity. There's the traditional aggressive Mage that lost Mana Worm, but they started playing Mana Addict instead and trying to pressure with Cosmic Anomaly, a lot of damage through Fireballs and Frostbolts. And then there's Murloc Mage, which is kind of more of a minion, board-centric aggressive deck. And Alliestrasza throws away one of her most powerful cards in the deck with Aluneth. What do you think about that?
I'm a little skeptical of that decision. Aluneth, as you mentioned, one of the strongest cards, one of the most important cards in the deck to just give you enough power to get through what your opponent might be doing. Her thought process could be that, well, I'm playing as a Druid. I need to get as strong of a minion curve as possible and put pressure on them quickly. I can't really win if they get to the point where they're gaining a bunch of armor with Malfurion or branching paths. It is worth noting, SaltyMonkey here is playing basically standard Malygos Druid. She just said, okay, well, Wild Growth costs 3 and Nourish costs 6. They're still good enough for me. This deck is still powerful. And we'll see exactly how well that does play out for her here. No Wild Growth on 2. You can't do that with the coin anymore. But Alliestrasza, no 1-drop, but a pair of Rockpool Hunters is really putting the pressure on quickly. And this is what the Druid deck can really struggle with. Now we see Wild Growth drawn on turn 3, but that is going to set up for a Gentle Megasaur from Alliestrasza, and that can end the game really quickly.
That's right. So, everything comes just a little bit slower for Druid. Wild Growth into Coin Nourish, that's still a thing.
It is.
It's just weird to see those numbers.
It is funny, but those things happening much more slowly. Granted, SaltyMonkey didn't draw Wild Growth till turn 3, but oof.
Oh! Hold on, there's actually some choices
There is. The Wind Fury here does slightly less damage this turn, but with any kind of damage buff is more powerful. So with Fungalmancer or with a potential additional Megasaur or a War Leader, it could hit for a lot of damage, but that's a lot already.
Yeah, and this is why Murloc decks have traditionally given Druid a hard time, no matter if they even had Wild Growth and Nourish on 2 and 5. And the reason is because they build such tall, powerful boards that it's hard for Druid to remove everything simultaneously, and they have so much synergy. The Murlocs improve further Murlocs.
Right, and one of the big problems here, you look at, oh, well, you have Spreading Plague, you can slow down all these small minions. They're not small anymore. All 3 of these minions are big enough to kill one of the Scarabs from Spreading Plague. So while this does prevent a lot of damage right now, it doesn't actually solve the problem of these minions on the board. It is worth noting that the fact that Alliestrasza took plus attack means that she only had to attack once with each of her minions rather than potentially having to attack twice and get more damage on them, which could make them vulnerable to something like a swipe or other damage-based removal.
And you can almost make a justification for any permutation with Allie's hand right now. You want to try and get things like Murloc Tidecaller out faster than usual, but at the same time, you also want to secure the state of the board through things like Cold Light Seer. And then it's also turn 5. Fungalmancer is just kind of what Cold Light Seer does, but maybe a little bit more aggressive, however you've already attacked. And then you, of course, have to factor in Gentle Megasaur, number 2. That's also really powerful.
Yeah, getting as many Murlocs on the board as possible helps make the Megasaur more powerful. Getting the Cold Light Seer down means that your board is solidified against a potential swipe. You still have enough room on the board with one spot available that if you do see another Spreading Plague, that Megasaur can still come down and really put the hurting on SaltyMonkey.
That's That's right. And you also have to account for the fact that one Spreading Plague already has been used. So
True.
it's unlikely that SaltyMonkey will have the second copy of Spreading Plague inside of her hand. And plus, even if she did, would it help the board state that much? There's still a lot of threat with that second Gentle Megasaur or any other buff that's in the deck.
Yeah, it's a really tough situation for SaltyMonkey. And frankly, even before the nerfs, Murloc Mage was a tough matchup for a deck like Malygos.
That's right.
Because they put so much pressure on, because they get such large minions down so quickly that your Spreading Plagues don't have that much of an impact. They can just snowball before you get you are able to ramp up and really get into any kind of position of control. Well, that takes longer now. So, you know, no real surprise to see SaltyMonkey in this deficit at this point in the matchup.
So SaltyMonkey can survive for, you know, a turn, at least in her mind. The branching paths can stall for a little bit. Going up to, you know, 29 health.
That's a lot of armor.
It's a lot.
It does give SaltyMonkey some time, but the problem is time isn't actually doing that much for her right now because she takes off 2 of these minions. Yes, she's at 29.
Oh my goodness.
But okay, well now this is...
Oh my goodness!
Well, I mean, there's a lot of options still for Alliestrasza. I actually like... I mean, War Leader here obviously puts on the most immediate pressure, and the fact that there's only swipes in SaltyMonkey's decks, there's no threat of, say, swipe Starfall, and she doesn't even have enough mana for that because she's only ramped once. Means that, you know, there's nothing that can actually keep up this board. We see a bit of a smirk there from SaltyMonkey. She's like, okay, all right, I see what's going on. I am getting eaten by the fishes.
But SaltyMonkey gave Alliestrasza those cards, you know? And something that is the big downside of Naturalize. Yes, you get to remove a minion for only 1 mana, but the draw for an aggressive deck helps them so much more than, say, those late-game control decks, which often have high cost and have a hard time getting out of their hand.
Yeah, and it is interesting, the fact that SaltyMonkey did choose to pick her Druid deck. I think that picking her Druid deck may have been a reaction to the fact that Allie still had Warrior available, and she has an Odd Warrior deck. But it is not, this isn't like a Togwaggle Druid deck, so it still can actually just get armored out by Odd Warrior from Alliestrasza. So this Druid deck being the pick that SaltyMonkey made over her Hunter deck is a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense too because when Allie has the opportunity to bring, say, Odd Rogue to the thing, you need to have some way to answer it because a lot of people believe that the aggressive Odd Rogue is one of the strongest decks in the format. But you have to account for Murloc Mage as well. SaltyMonkey has no way to stop the onslaught of the fishes, and that is game 1 to one of our local players in Alliestrasza.
Yeah, did any of you see that BlizzCon event, the March of the Murlocs, where they're just, you know, thousands of people, hundreds of people in Murloc costumes just running down the convention hallways? That's basically what happened in that game. Just the Murlocs chomped down on Malfurion there.
It was very dominant, and I think it was also a really good demonstration to show what was important in that matchup. The legendary weapon Aluneth, one of the most powerful cards, but Allie properly recognized that she needed to put on the aggression fast. And that is why a lot of people respect her play, even though people may think she is primarily a streamer first. And in fact, why don't we take an opportunity to get to know Alliestrasza just a little bit better before Game 2.
My name is Allie, also known as Alliestrasza in-game, and I play Hearthstone professionally. Right now I live in Los Angeles, California. Yoga is one of my favorite things to do, about 2 to 3 times a week. At my heart, I think I'm an introvert, but I still love people. All right, guys, I'm going to cue a monster hunt. It still blows my mind that I've got people from all different countries hanging out in my channel, meeting each other, and connecting with different people all over the world. Don't want to throw away a star, if you know what I mean. I've been playing Hearthstone since the end of 2015. I didn't compete in Hearthstone for the first year and a half of playing, but I got coaching and they gave me the necessary encouragement and practice to try my hand at competing. Growing up, my dad was a professional doubles tennis player, so I think I get my competitive drive from my dad. My dad didn't know much about video games, but now gets so excited about my competitions and he equates it to his tennis pro tour. You know, you travel around the world and you meet up with friends and other competitors, so it's very cool. I would say the essence of me is really just wanting to help others, particularly women in esports, and helping pave the way for future generations in this industry. There are more and more women competing in Hearthstone now more than ever, which is amazing, and that's something that we need to keep striving for and keep supporting.
I believe in your dreams, believe in your plan, yeah. I believe in me.
Just a quick glimpse into Alliestrasza's personal background there. As you can see that her family comes from a pedigree of competition, which doesn't surprise me whatsoever. And she has been traveling a lot, even just this year, competing at the Hearthstone Championship tour stops, as well as some invitationals overseas.
Yeah, she's been really competing in a lot more events this year, and kind of blowing up as a competitor as well as a streamer. And it's it's cool to see a little glimpse into her background, how
That's
she got
right.
here.
Assuming she's also not splitting her time streaming and also participating in Blizzard events in the invitationals or even presenting Rumble Run live on stream. Now let's focus back into this series. Alliestrasza started off with the Murloc Mage, and after analyzing how the draft went for the pick ban, it totally makes sense that SaltyMonkey started off with Malygos Druid, because with Warrior and Murloc Mage both on the field available, Malygos Druid can struggle a little bit with all these different matchups. So SaltyMonkey led off with one of her weakest decks, which is a very viable strategy in last hero standing, and now can counterpick the Murloc Mage with either aggro Shaman or even Paladin. Both are very good matchups against that deck, at least on paper.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Did I pick the wrong?
I think you're looking at it backwards.
Okay. I am looking at it completely backwards.
But we will see. I was going to say, I expect we will see this even Paladin coming in, because it does give SaltyMonkey a strong opportunity to counter the Murloc Mage. The even Paladin is a deck that we saw a lot of players lean toward in this particular event. I imagine in large part due to the changes to Level Up, which made it unavailable to Odd Paladin. That is this is a deck that still has a lot of power available. We're not seeing Level Up move to this deck, but it does still have a lot of the ability to put pressure on and control the board, thanks to Equality, Consecration, True Civil Champion, all these sort of classic Paladin tools.
Gilbert, I was right. I was validated. We accidentally swapped the lower third graphics because SaltyMonkey is playing the Paladin. So she does have the even Paladin and the aggressive Shaman, which is interesting. I like that aggro Shaman list a little bit more, but we can explain that as we come across that hump if needed, because SaltyMonkey could just win 3-0. Again, last year standing, win until you lose with the deck.
Yep. All right, well, turn one, unsurprisingly from the even Paladin, does mean a Silverhand Recruit. A little bit of a slow draw from SaltyMonkey. The Argent Protector is okay for allowing her to actually help contest the board, but more importantly, Alliestrasza does not have a solid one-drop here. If Alliestrasza had a Tidecaller here that she could start buffing with Razorfed Hunter and such, that ends up allowing her to snowball. But if she stays behind, with 2-drops like Bluegill Warrior and Murloc Tidehunter, that makes it much harder for her to keep up with these Silverhand Recruits.
Yes, this is the entire reason to play even Paladin. So that on turn one, when you're on the play, you can immediately have things to do. You'll never be able to, or you'll always be able to have something to do very early on in the game.
I do think this turn is an interesting decision, because Argent Protector is the best immediate tempo play, but you don't have another 2. So next turn you have 3 mana. Unless you draw the 2-drop, if you play Argent Protector next turn, you're just using your hero power again. So I like SaltyMonkey's decision here to just use the hero power rather than play the 2-drop with the 2 mana available, because it gives her 3 mana utilization for the following turn.
That's right.
For Alliestrasza's position here, she has that the Nightmare Amalgam, which she could coin out here, which would put her in a position where she is ahead on the board at least. The problem with this is that next turn, what does she do with her mana? Because she needs to answer a potential Blessing of Kings or True Civil Champion the following turn, and much like we were just discussing on SaltyMonkey's turn, if you use the coin now and play the Nightmare Amalgam, you don't really have a great way to use your 3 mana next turn except for perhaps Stargazer Luna, and that's often something you want to hold until you can actually get some sort of card draw from it, even in a matchup like this.
That's right. And then on SaltyMonkey's, on her perspective, Murloc Mage strips itself of one of the best tools in Mage's arsenal in order to be more aggressive, which is Area of Effect, destroy the board cards. So they're not known for that. If you go very wide onto the board and even protect it with those Divine Shield cards, how will Alliestrasza diffuse a board with so many 1/1 Silverhand Recruits that can get buffed by Blessing of Kings, which there are 2 now in her deck?
Yeah, there are a lot of tempo mage style decks now, they have arcane missiles, they have shooting star. Murloc Mage doesn't. Murloc Mage's 1-cost cards are all Murlocs. So there's no good way for Alliestrasza to, as you mentioned, sort of deal with a board that goes wide. So you know, I like the idea of SaltyMonkey just hero powering here, adding an Argent Protector, just getting her Boyd out there. And you know, sure, you've got Nightmare Amalgam. That can only kill one of these 1/1s a turn.
Exactly. Yeah, people look at Even Paladin as being a very flexible mid-range deck that's capable of being aggressive or a little bit defensive and board-centric. But in this case, you're giving up so much by attacking into that Nightmare Amalgam. Just ignore it. Let your board intimidate Alliestrasza, make her be a little bit more defensive. And, you know, unfortunately for Alliestrasza's hand, she's got more things to simply develop and gets kind of pummeled by these 1/1s.
Yeah, and frankly, we're seeing a lot of the reason why this is a poor matchup for the Murloc Mage. Murloc Mage does so well against an opponent who's trying to take their time to set up. You know, Ramp Druid, like we saw in the last game. They don't really do anything to pressure you, so you get to spend all your mana developing Murlocs, pressuring them. Well, now Alliestrasza, she's under the gun against 4 minions, and the best she can do is play 2/1 health minions, play 1, you know, Stargazer Luna, which is, you know, going to do something to help you know, challenge the board here. But you know, now a Truce of her Champion, a Blessing of Kings. Either of these coming down this turn allows SaltyMonkey to clear off the entire board.
Yes, and I think either of those would have pretty good impact. The only thing about Truce of her Champion is that, you know, there's not that many 4 health targets. There's a lot of small targets at like 1 to 2, maybe even 3 health. Blessing of Kings presents an immediate threat that your opponent has to answer. And then the best part is, as every successive turn comes out, you're able to squeeze out an extra 1/1 that can help push even more onto the board.
One interesting thing this turn, I think, after SaltyMonkey has now played the Truce of her, is how she chooses to attack here. And I like this a lot. I like preserving the minion with the Divine Shield rather than keeping a second minion in play. This means that you can land Blessing of Kings next turn on a minion that has Divine Shield, unless your opponent somehow breaks it, which means they can't just immediately fireball it.
Right.
So this, you know, also allows you can Blessing of Kings and attack into a big minion. Say Alliestrasza plays a Gentle Megasaur.
Right.
Well, you could just Truce over that down, but you could also just get the value trade with Blessing of Kings too.
Except this happens to be a slight punish based off the situation.
Right.
You know, SaltyMonkey constricted her board in order to try to destroy some of the stronger minions that might come out, and can you really blame her? There's things like Murloc War Leader or Rockpool Hunter, all reasonable-sized minions that the Truce of Champion can take down, but 1 health minion, that's not what you want to swing into.
It's true. And here, you know, SaltyMonkey picked up a Corpse Taker, which can give her, you know, pretty strong defense against these as well. But, you know, there are just a bunch of minions on the board that can easily take away the Divine Shield of it. Given the way that this game played out, you know, SaltyMonkey would definitely prefer to have a second minion to just clear off the 2/2/1s rather than be sitting here and have to potentially use Truciva to take down a small minion. But I feel like she's still in a pretty strong situation here if she does just pick away this board a little bit.
Winter is here.
Yeah, Corpse Taker, a fantastic card to play with the Blessing of Kings, but even just to constrict the board too on the opponent's side, because they have to attack into it. It's very hard to trade efficiently.
Oh, Aluneth is a very big draw for Alliestrasza here. You know, that means if this game continues to go kind of blow for blow, trading on the board, that Alliestrasza will be able to just churn through a bunch of resources.
Yeah.
And in the sort of short games, Even Paladin essentially gets a resource advantage by the fact that it can just easily use its hero power, and that hero power can just trade with cards from Murloc Mage. You know, a 1/1 trades with Grimscale Oracle, it trades with Murloc Raider, it can trade with Bluegill Warrior. But if you're drawing 4 cards a turn, thanks to your normal draw plus Aluneth, you can really outpace even that hero power.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of the legendary weapons. You know, Valinir versus Aluneth to potentially close out the game. SaltyMonkey has a lot of damage, especially if the Corpse Taker goes unanswered. So Alliestrasza has to weigh, do I try and invest a lot of resources into killing off this Corpse Taker? Or perhaps do I try to let myself take a little damage early on? It's a tough situation.
Yeah, and nothing really lines up well with the Bluegill and Cold Seer because of that Divine Shield. If she didn't have to ping this, you know, she could potentially trade into this and land the Cold Seer as well, kill a minion, still have 2 bodies on the board. But because of the Divine Shield, there's no great trade here. And now, you know, now this is a really awkward spot because SaltyMonkey can, you know, perhaps use the Blessing of Kings and get damage in immediately, force Allie to react to this. Could just play Gen. which is also reasonable. Valinir's not bad either, because Valinir does buff the future minions pretty readily. I think that if I'm in SaltyMonkey's position, I like Blessing of Kings, because you want to get a hit out of your Blessing of Kings. So you want to have a minion that can attack the turn that you play. And now you force your opponent to deal with this right away, or you just keep pressuring them even more.
Yeah, and I think one thing, too, is being able to answer a potential wide board from the mage. As we saw that SaltyMonkey, like, before that Corpse Taker draw, 4 Murlocs just suddenly appeared onto the board state, and that could have gotten snowballed really quickly if SaltyMonkey wasn't able to answer it the way she did. Yeah, and so going wider, I think, instead of just putting everything onto like again, I think is also okay in that spot.
It's definitely true. And also, you know, the Consecration SaltyMonkey just picked up also gives her the ability to, you know, answer a wider board from Alliestrasza that, you know, having just a single big minion, or at least, you know, a big minion and another one that could potentially threaten the Blessing of Kings really helps her keep that pressure on too.
Right. And, you know, one thing Alliestrasza has as well as an opportunity, she could take the damage by playing Aluneth, but one thing that's going to be restricted still in resources is not the card in her hand, it's going to be the mana.
Right.
So if she chooses to remove with Fireball and Hero Power now, that's actively investing into countering your opponent's next turn as well if you don't play Aluneth, because then you can play Murloc Tidecaller, the Gentle Megasaur, and then Hero Power their inevitable 1 mana play, which is involving Hero Power, because there's no 1 mana cost cards in the deck.
All right, well.
Except Argent Commander pushes the issue, and I think SaltyMonkey says, you know what, I'm not even going to set up anymore, I'm just going to pressure. I have 3 sources of damage from my hand.
Yeah, the Valinir, the Blessing of Kings, the Consecration, all these can help just continue to push damage unless Alliestrasza kills every single thing. And, you know, Book of Specters, another draw from Alliestrasza, can give her some more resources, but as you mentioned, she doesn't really need cards. She needs mana. She needs time. And SaltyMonkey's hand and board aren't giving her that.
Yeah, and there's one thing that Murlocs can't do very well, which is play the control style. It tries so hard to get ahead of their opponent and stay ahead, to run past their opponent and force them to react. But now, when you are playing as the reactive defensive player, Alliestrasza is willing to accept the damage, and the damage is not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for SaltyMonkey to fire off the Blessing of Kings. She can just play Blessing of Kings and Consecration here. Clear this off. Yeah, I like this a lot. It may seem, oh, you're consecrating just 1 minion. Well, they have no minions. They have no minions to buff. And you can't spend your, all your mana next turn with another Consecration. You're putting them to 6 with Valinir in hand, an 8/6 Divine Shield. This is just continuing to press the advantage in a way that Alliestrasza will not be able to come back from, I think.
Yeah, no minions equals no minions. And that's a really big deal when it comes to a minion-centric deck. With Alliestrasza picking up the Gentle Megasaur and the Cold Light Oracle, doesn't look like anything really impactful can happen.
She can try and find some taunt off of Megasaur here.
Or Poisonous, perhaps. I think that's her biggest chance.
Okay.
It's a 3 out of 10 because you're offered 10 adapt opportunities. But I don't think any other way can clean remove this Argent Commander otherwise.
And she does have Poisonous.
Okay.
So she can ping and attack.
But
on board, she's not dead.
yeah, she's not dead based off what's on the board. But if SaltyMonkey draws a little bit more damage, that's the game.
I mean, right now, just Valinir to face means Consecration is lethal next turn, and there's nothing that Alliestrasza's deck can do about it. There's no Primordial Glyph. She can
there's no way to stop it.
Counterspell. So in SaltyMonkey's position here, you know, she can Hydrologist. She can go get, you know, say an eye for an eye or whatever she wants.
Yeah, exactly.
But unless Alliestrasza kills her this turn, there's nothing to stop that Consecration if Valinir goes face. Finds Hidden Wisdom, Repentance, and Auto Defense Matrix. None of these are super useful, but none of them are really relevant either, as we were saying. Yeah, if she just connects with the Valinir, she's going to. Ooh, no, she's going to play Gen.
Oh, this is surprising.
Interesting. I'm quite surprised by this.
Right.
Because there are ways for Alliestrasza to come back here. I guess there's just Valinir plus Consecration in hand, so maybe she's thinking, okay, well, I just have this burst next turn anyway.
You're
But if Alliestrasza does have, say, a second Megasaur giving her taunt on some minions that have more than 2 health, this is a lot of ifs, you know, because then Alliestrasza does still need to clear the board. But there's I think, you know, a remote possibility that there's something that stops this, where I think there was nothing that could stop the Valinir play.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also a couple of other very corner case scenarios that can come into play. For example, there's a Lifesteal Murloc that you could discover that can help you gain a little bit of life, and you never know. It's a very nice edge.
It doesn't have Charger Rush or anything, so.
It's true, but it could have Taunt if
It could.
Mega Sword that. It's a very, again,
Yeah, it's a
scenario.
very corner case and no corners here. Those are 3 useless adapts for this situation. And I think we may be going on to our 3rd game very soon.
Yeah, that's right. And in the end, we knew that this was going to be a tough matchup for the Murloc Mage, but you get to see exactly why that is, and perhaps why a lot of people are starting to transition from an odd Paladin deck to an even Paladin, because you know what? Turns out that even Paladin still has a lot of power, even though it lost Call to Arms several months ago.
Yeah, definitely a lot of powerful stuff going on. As you see, the Consecration going to be enough to close things out.
And that is going to be game 2. SaltyMonkey equalizes. And now this best of 5 has been set to a best of 3. But now the response and initiative gets to go to Allie, because now she can choose between her rogue or her warrior to answer back.
Yeah, one of the key elements of Last Hero Standing is that that initiative of the player who lost. So could be a big advantage for Allie.
All right, before we go into game 3, let's check in with some other members of our team. Let's head over to Lauren Jabara.
Thanks, TJ. Okay, we want you guys to get involved on that Twitch chat. Alliestrasza looked really strong that first game, but SaltyMonkey was able to come back and do it in the second one. So vote on the Blacksmith extension on that Twitch chat. Do you think SaltyMonkey is going to come back and defeat Alliestrasza with the 3 wins? What do you guys think? Make sure to vote Blacksmith extension on that Twitch chat. TJ?
Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to the Hearthstone Championship Tour.
Does that make me admirable?
with the Admiral. That's admirable.
That was a huge game right there.
Oh, you can even hear Admirable's laughter echoing. But, you know, it's good. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen for the rest of the series, because I think the beauty of Last Hero Standing is that there's a lot of ways that you can approach this series. Do you end up going through more of a hybrid approach, or do you simply talk over the casters at the analyst desk, because they were throwing at TJ, but she received it for TJ, so I wasn't sure what was happening, Killer.
I'm not really sure either. But no,
we're messing up the show.
I do think that there's a lot of value in having a diversity in your lineup that your opponent can't necessarily target a specific thing. You know, if you have, say, combo decks and control decks and aggro decks, you know, it makes it much more difficult for your opponent to just poke the holes out of your strategy and attack one specific thing.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, going into game number 3 here, Alliestrasza still has a couple of powerful decks. What does she bring specifically for her rogue and her warrior decks?
Her rogue deck is Odd Rogue. So she has a very aggressive deck remaining in that. And for her warrior deck, it is Odd Warrior. So she's got 2 Baku decks remaining, and obviously at very polar opposites in terms of their strategy. The warrior deck looking to grind opponents out. It's actually a Dragon Odd warrior deck, so Zalay might approve of that. And the Odd Rogue, obviously, as we've seen for a very long time, just very, very aggressive, pushing damage early on with the hero power and a bunch of cheap minions.
Yeah, this is going to be a complete shift.
Yeah, wait, it is the Shaman. I thought I was right. I thought I was right that she had Shaman, not Warrior. You said I was wrong, but I was right. This is even Shaman, though. But it is another Gen deck. This is another deck that looks to push the tempo of the game early with the hero power, allowing to establish totems and buff those with Earth and Might and Flame Tongue Totem, along with Direwolf Alpha. So lots of ways to get the board and try and keep the board. And this is actually a bit of an interesting matchup, because both of these decks are looking to do much the same. And the Paladin deck has access to Equality Consecration, which is not something that the Even Shaman deck can really compete with in terms of the ability to get back the board if it falls behind.
All right, I'm never going to question you again, Brian Gilbert. That was the last time. I am staring at this game draft graphic, but this is what it is. We have Even Shaman coming next, and that's another deck that I feel like is under the radar, largely because everyone paid attention to the big brother Thrall deck, which was Shutterwalk Shaman, controlling everything, destroying the board, freezing people, and summoning more copies of itself to bounce and return to hand. That strategy has been gutted, at least for now, until people can figure out what's the better build of it if they choose to revisit that strategy. Even Shaman, very similar to even Paladin, and except it's a little bit better at fighting against the board early on.
Well, and this, I think, is a play from Allie that highlights just how important that early game board fight is. Because she just used her Earthen Might and a Totem. And that's something that when you see Earthen Might, you're like, oh, you want to play this in Elemental. You want to get your extra card. But because this is a matchup that's so board-centric, you want to use your Earthen Might to just get the advantage on the board and not allow your opponent to develop and potentially use their buffs.
Yeah, although I feel like because of powerful cards like Consecration and Equality, this is a matchup that even Shaman has to eventually close, unless they can rely upon some really powerful late game cards like the Lich King or Hagatha.
Yeah, I think in this particular matchup, Hagatha is the most important card for even Shaman, because not only does it give you the ability to gain back the board, even if something like Sunkeeper Tarim comes down and buffs it, it also gives you the ability to actually out-resource your opponent. And even Shaman is a deck that frequently can run out of gas because your totems, they can be random. So if you just hit Healing Totem, Spell Power Totem, Healing Totem, you're like, oh, well, okay, these aren't really doing very much. But this card right here for SaltyMonkey, she is playing a more controlling version of Even Paladin, and that Wild Pyromancer can cause some serious fits to the Shaman's ability to actually gain the board.
Yeah, although it does sabotage a little bit of your own board development too, because the Wild Pyromancer, 1 damage to everything, kills off that Searing Totem, but also kills off your own hero power, so you have to be really careful. Sometimes as the Even Paladin, you're even okay with the Wild Pyromancer dying because of that very reason.
We see Alliestrasza's hand, she's playing a deck that is built to be very proactive and get on the board quickly, but she's a very expensive draw for her deck overall. The Sea Giant doesn't quite come down this turn, was a single mana off, and the rest of that hand is most of the cards that cost 6 or more in her deck.
Yeah, even Shaman actually went through a very interesting evolution throughout its lifetime in Hearthstone. It first started off as a fairly aggressive all-in deck that tried to approach very token-centric stuff, and then it just started slowly adding more expensive cards to the point where you're basically just like a slower deck, even if you don't get those early 2 mana cards. And you can just see it right now with Alliestrasza's hand. Really big and powerful stuff, powerful elementals in play or Sea Giant, but nothing to do until turn 6.
Yeah, the deck has the 2 Sea Giants, which aren't really expensive in most situations, but if your opponent knows they're in your deck and they fight to contain them, they can be a lot more difficult to play. So, from SaltyMonkey's perspective, knowing that there's a pair of Sea Giants in Allie's deck, and knowing that, well, she just totem passed on turn 5, she's got to be thinking, okay, well, how do I contain this? Should I just be pushing damage to the face? Should I be killing this totem? She does choose to, but interestingly, the fact that she hero-powered herself does mean that Sea Giant is still an opportunity for Allie, but going into 6 mana, there's also Fire Elemental and Argent Commander, so she couldn't keep her off of everything.
That's right. And even if, the big Sea Giant comes down, SaltyMonkey has some of the best tools at her disposal to be able to fight back, either setting up a big wall or even just Sunkeeper Tarim and control everything like you were talking about. So what will Alliestrasza choose to do? Because she has to fight from behind. And again, with these tempo-oriented decks that want to spend their mana as much as they can and control the state of the board, she's playing from behind a deck that always wants to be ahead.
Yeah, I think from Alliestrasza's perspective, the key card in her hand she needs to be thinking about is Kalamos, because she's on 6 mana. That means that on 8 mana, she'd really like to play Kalamos and be able to clear SaltyMonkey's board. So she decides to go for the Sea Giant, and this, I think it was this or Argent Commander were the plays she would want to make that turn. The Sea Giant is the immediately strongest. It is weaker against Sunkeeper Tarim, which is a card that SaltyMonkey has in her hand, because if she did play Argent Commander, she could kill a minion on the board immediately and couldn't get value traded into Tarim or anything like that.
Except it is going to be very painful to have a Sunkeeper Tarim come down with the available for the hero power, and you're still a turn away from Hagatha, which is, I think, the number one thing you're scared about on turn 8 against your opponent. And Kalamos adds a second layer of fear to that.
Yeah, there's actually a few interesting plays available to SaltyMonkey here. She could... I think the most obvious one is just Tarim, and you can attack your 3/2 ooze into the 1/1 totem and then Tarim, so you actually get an additional minion effectively.
Or squeeze in a hero power.
Well, she can't hero power coin because she has the Pyromancer.
Oh, you're
She'd
right.
have to trade off the Pyromancer if she wanted the hero power
yeah,
coin.
that's so annoying.
So,
exactly what we're talking about, too.
So yeah, that is something that can sort of cause you to have a more difficult situation. It looks like she's not going to take the value trade, though, on the 3-3. She just wants to push Davis to the face. No, she's going to trade now. Okay, so this is a little bit of a misstep, I think, from SaltyMonkey, because she could have gotten a free trade there with the ooze rather than full-on trading one of her minions.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree here as well. You want to have maximum board pressure, especially because you're coming up on power turns. And Alliestrasza has been giving hints to SaltyMonkey about the state of her hand for a while now, because quite frankly, her first 5 turns of the game were as bad as weak as it usually gets for even Shaman.
Yeah, so Alliestrasza does have a couple of options here. She could use her Fire Elemental to kill one of these minions, which can set up the Calamos for the following turn. That does still leave 6 power on the board, one of them being a 3/7. But you do have the Fire Elemental body to potentially attack in. You don't want to use your Hex prior to a Spike-Ridge Steed, usually in this matchup, because Spike-Ridge Steed is such a nightmare if you don't have that available.
Yeah, that's a good point. And now this is a window of opportunity for Alliestrasza to come back into the game through Calamos, or, through Calamos board destruction. I believe it's the invocation of air. But she can also use the opportunity to heal herself in a pinch situation, because let's be real, Even Paladin has a lot of damage also in the hand.
It's true. Yeah, there's a lot of burst potential from Even Paladin, in addition to what we saw last game with Valnir, the consecrations, is Avenging Wrath. We don't see it in SaltyMonkey's hand right now, but it's always something that has to be top of mind. It's the threat of equality into Avenging Wrath. Not only does it kill your board most of the time, but it also often kills you. So SaltyMonkey now, she has a lot of options here. There's the Spike-Ridge Steed. I kind of like the idea of Spike-Ridge Steeding this turn, because it does allow you to eat the Fire Elemental and still keep some pressure on. She just goes with Coin Lich King, and this is also obviously very, very strong. This does mean that she gets a Death Knight card. But now, Calamos, with the Fire Elemental attacking to the Lich King, can actually clear the board. And the same would be true of Hagatha.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, this Death Coil picks up 5 extra damage for only 2 mana.
Yeah, we were talking about burst, and that's a lot of burst.
It's very powerful.
Even if Calamos does come down and clear off everything but the Tarim here, there's still 3 damage on the board, plus 9 burst from hand. So that's nearly lethal for SaltyMonkey just next turn.
Exactly.
And playing the Calamos here means there's no Calamos heal available next turn. There is also the possibility of just playing the pickup. I was thinking about the Calamos before. She just drew Flametongue Totem. Flametongue Totem does mean that she can play Flametongue and just kill the Lich King there. She has an Argent Commander that can't quite kill the Tarim, though, so there'd still be 6 left on the board.
Yeah, this is something that I was even thinking about myself, too. There is a lot of validity to killing off the Wild Pyromancer for your own stake of the board, but sometimes it damages your opponent board, too. So had the Coin Lich King come out, Tarim would have been a little bit weaker. Alliestrasza goes for the Menacing Nimbus, tries to seek a better elemental play, but not really anything substantial. And Corpse Taker can bring her back in the life total. It doesn't have to have. Oh, no Divine Shield either. That's
the
massive.
Fact that, yes, the fact that Alec here is in the hand. This could just be Pyro plus Consecration plus Death Coil. Is that lethal? That's 6, 8. No, it's 1 off. It's 1 off with the Death Coil.
You got other sources of damage.
It's true. You don't need to end the game right now necessarily. There was an elemental that was played last turn, so Calamos can heal next turn. So just firing off your Death Coil and killing your Pyromancer could still be a little bit problematic.
Yeah.
Job's done.
So now the Calamos can come down, clear off this board, but there is that Death Coil that'll just finish things off, or just a Blessing of Kings at this point, or Argent Commander. So Allie, she could heal with Calamos to avoid those killing her, but there's still just a board, doing 12 damage to her next turn. That's all the life she'd gain from Calamos. Still dies to a combination of buffs. It's a really tough spot for Allie.
Yeah, and the range of the Lich King cards can be very wide. You can have Anti-Magic Shell, which can basically cement the board, and SaltyMonkey will never ever lose control. There's Frostmourne, just to add 15 damage. So even if you're able to survive, you have to have layers of damage, or layers of health, and defense. So Alliestrasza, how are you going to navigate, if you can even do that, out of this situation?
I don't really think there's a way. I mean, the totem there, getting a taunt totem, does mean that she's at least not just dead to a Blessing of Kings if she does Calamos for damage on her opponent's minions. but then, you know, how is she winning from here, right?
Exactly.
And I think that may be her thought process here is, okay, well, I could clear the board, but now I can just play this Alec here. Well,
oh boy. Well, I mean, we knew that this was going to be a foregone conclusion anyways, because SaltyMonkey had the damage in hand. Don't blame Alliestrasza trying to soften the board and maybe make a big swing turn, but it was a very unlikely scenario anyways. So you have to play to win. I respect it. And SaltyMonkey's going to climb to a 2-1 advantage.
yeah, and I think that was sort of a nod to, okay, well, I could use my Kalamos here, and you know, maybe I survive a few turns, but I'm so far behind, right? And I think that she recognized, in order to win this game, I'm going to have to get the heal activation of Kalamos to not die to burst damage, and decided to take the risk with Alec here, ended up dying that turn.
All right, well, that means it's a 2-1 lead for SaltyMonkey. Only one game away from staving off elimination and heading to the decider match. Alliestrasza, she has absolutely no room for error. One more loss, and she is eliminated. What is going to happen? We'll find out when we return to WSOE 2 Hearthstone Showdown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be joining you now here from the Republic of Gamers Command Center. I want to catch you guys up on what's been going on in the other games that are happening on the stage right now. It has been chaotic so far. We've had some incredibly intense matches going on. I'll talk to you first about what's happening in Group A on my right-hand monitor. We just finished the third game in that series. So far, it's been the story of Odd Rogue. We saw Arya manage to start the series off 1-0 with her Odd Rogue. Then we had a mirror matchup between Odd Rogues, and it was Karakute that managed to even out the series. We just literally a few seconds ago finished off the third game in that series, and it was even Paladin from Arya to get a 2-1 advantage in the series up against the Odd Rogue from Karakute. Now over in Group C, I'll try and catch you guys up. We've got Bloody versus Skarakai. Now the series started off with a handlock up against Shavala Paladin. And it was an incredibly close one. A lot of horsemen came into play, but once Gul'dan came out, the horsemen just could not stay on the board, and it ended up going the way of Skarakai. But Quest Rogue is now what is going on, because Bloody has brought it to the table. It destroyed handlock in the first game, but now sort of struggling in this next matchup up against the Even Paladin from Skarakai. That game is still going on, and I'll let you guys know how that finishes. But the one that I really am keeping my eyes on is Group B. Nayara up against Nicolina has been incredibly close of a matchup. We've got Big Mage up against Dragon Priest. Now Secret Hunter is coming into the mix. It's one apiece right now. I'll keep you guys updated. But that's about my update done and dusted. We're going to jump back into our main series, which is Alliestrasza against SaltyMonkey. We'll see if SaltyMonkey can finish things off as I pass it over back to Brian and Frodan.
Thank you very much for that update around the stage here. We're going into game number 4 momentarily for Alliestrasza versus SaltyMonkey. SaltyMonkey with 2 wins on the Even Paladin, looking to potentially sweep Allie with her Priest remaining. And Priest is in a very interesting spot right now, Brian Gibler. I would say that they got some interesting directions ever since Rasakan's Rumble has released. And it seems like Alliestrasza, I mean, she has no more games that she can lose. What does she have remaining?
Her remaining Priest deck is Clone Priest, which only really has one new card, but it's a very powerful new card in the form of Mass Hysteria. Mass Hysteria is a incredibly powerful board clear that gives the Priest deck a lot more early game defense, which is one of the things it really struggled with. We see actually both sort of combo style Priest decks, both the Topsy-Turvy and Cloning Priest, really got huge upgrades from Mass Hysteria, and this is one of the matchups where it can be a really big deal.
Yeah, for people who are tuning in halfway and are a little bit confused why such an unusual lineup is being brought, there is a pick and ban draft phase prior to this tournament, or prior to this round, excuse me. They have to do it for every single round that they play. And Alliestrasza has this Priest as her last remaining deck after using it to react. And I think Priest, in general, especially Cloning Priest, is a deck that has a lot of nuance to it, and people might feel like its win rate isn't actually reflected in how powerful this deck can be.
Yeah, there are a lot of decks like that where the deck itself is very powerful, but not necessarily straightforward. And we see that with something like Topsy-Turvy Priest. The win rate records for Topsy-Turvy Priest, if you look at something just like HS replay data, are really unimpressive. But if you look at someone like, say, Dog, it's like, oh, well, you just crush everyone with this deck. So I think that that's also true of the Cloning Priest deck. We've seen players like Asmodai take his #1 legend even.
Right.
And there's a lot of detail to how you want to navigate each matchup.
Yeah, and it's all, it does remind me a lot of the Big Priest from back in the day. Big Priest was about putting out big minions and then resurrecting them after they died. However, it's a little bit less all in on a specific strategy of drawing Barns on 4, and it's a little bit more about understanding your resurrect pool and trying to time out your mana expenditure, especially with Gilded Gargoyle, like the ability to get multiple coins into your hand. How are you going to layer that throughout the game?
Yeah, this is an interesting play from Alliestrasza, choosing to coin out the Radiant Elemental. Speaking of mana usage, Radiant Elemental is fantastic for giving you mana discounts, but also just is a 2/3 body, which it looks like Alliestrasza just wants to use to fight for the board. One of the key things about a matchup like this, recognizing there is equality, there's consecration. You can't just rely on getting a big thing in play and winning. You need to defend yourself in the early turns, and that's exactly what Alliestrasza is doing with these 2 Radiants.
Yeah, but it's also a really powerful opportunity in the late stage of the game if you can just drag it out and then combo your opponent down. This deck has some amazing burst with Malygos, Prophet Valen, and you can get them all at the same time if you time and, sometimes get a little bit fortunate with how the Xerix Cloning Gallery.
Yeah, the Xerix Cloning Gallery, the reason this deck is called Clone Priest, is an incredibly powerful card. If you get the right mix of minions remaining in your deck, being able to get both Malygos, Prophet Valen, you can Mind Blast one for 40 in a single turn with your pair of Mind Blasts.
Man, Shadow Essence for 4. I take it back. This can be a Barnes-oriented deck. If you're able to pull out, say, the Lich King early on, or have, a really powerful effect like Obsidian Statue, which destroys a random enemy when it's upon Death Rattle. Those kinds of things have some really early game determination that ends up influencing a significant advantage for the Priest player.
Yeah, this is a really interesting turn for Allie, exactly how she wants to navigate it, because she has 2 Radiants, both of which would die to an attack from the Argent Protector. She could choose to heal one of them up. That really doesn't do very much against a Consecration if SaltyMonkey was going to try to use that. She could just double bump the 1/1 and then play Gilded Gargoyle, which means that even if SaltyMonkey does clear off her board, she at least has the coin from the Gargoyle available.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it is the choice that Allie does decide to make. This, her board could just get Consecration away, but that does mean that, yes, she gets a coin from the Gargoyle at least, and she's not getting, there's not any development from SaltyMonkey, which is actually, even in a situation where you lose a lot of stuff, sometimes like, okay, well, I lost a lot of stuff, but my opponent is developing more to put me under pressure. Yeah. This is a big hit to Alliestrasza, though, because those Radiants are pretty key to her ability to not only control the board, but develop a faster game plan with something like Shadow Essence.
Yeah, I think Allie was hoping for the ability for one elemental to survive, so that way she could utilize the coin and then for 5 mana play Shadow Essence, hopefully pull out a really big minion. But in this case, probably has to go back to the drawing board. And, you know, she was hovering over the Blood Mage Thanos on the far left, and that's an okay play, but you're also, once again, conceding the board to the Even Paladin when you had an opportunity to get ahead. And because of that draw on Ziliax, once again has to reevaluate what's the important swing turn in this matchup.
Well, right now, you know, she can just try and go cycling a bit, essentially, with the Blood Mage Thanos. She does have Ziliax to potentially answer something next turn. And the threats for SaltyMonkey now are primarily the Blessing of Kings and you know, just additional board development coming out.
Yep, coining out the Ziliax. I don't blame Allie because the best play for SaltyMonkey in response on turn 5 is a True Silver Champion. And that's not going to be the case here. Her best play is either a Blessing Kings or that Serenite Chain Gang, which recently got a little nerfed, but it's not going to apply in this situation.
Could if she draws her Valinir and hits it.
It could. You are correct.
Reporting for duty.
You know, somewhere I was like secretly hoping that it would keep the buff copy, but it ended up just being a 2/3 taunt minion, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, for those who may not be aware, we're talking about just the other day, just yesterday, in fact, a round of balance changes went in. One of the cards that was changed was Serenite Chain Gang, primarily to reduce its effectiveness with Shudderwalk. You can't get Shudderwalks. That now infinite Shudderwalk combo does happen to influence any sort of buff cards that affect the Chain Gang while it's in your hand.
Yeah, precisely. So then what does Allie do now that her hand, again, is still not really developing into much? It's removal, it's a little bit of card draw, it's a little bit of, you know, combo potential, but nothing really substantial. And that's kind of something that this deck does tend to struggle with because it does so many things. It sometimes does nothing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you draw your Mind Blasts don't do anything until you're killing your opponent. Your Mind Blast is just a dead card sitting in your hand.
Exactly.
You draw your Shadow or Death. Well, it's a good card if your opponent plays a big minion, but it doesn't do anything until your opponent plays a big minion. So, you know, right now, Allie's kind of got the pieces of various puzzles, but not the whole thing.
SaltyMonkey has an opportunity to get aggressive in multiple ways. There's the Argent Commander, which is very mana efficient. There's what she's hovering over the Blessing of Kings, a little bit less mana efficient, but still has a lot of punch to it, and it will bait out things like the Shadow or Death before it. And the ever important turn also against any priest deck that's a little bit slow has to be Psychic Scream. How do you set up against the best 7 mana removal in the game when it gets to shuffle all these minions? You can see SaltyMonkey's not even hero powering. And is that a preparation, you think, for the Psychic Scream?
That's kind of interesting because she has Tarim in hand. And Allie can't Psychic Scream this turn. She doesn't have coin. It could be to reduce the potential impact of Mass Hysteria, because Mass Hysteria could do more damage to your minions if you have the 1/1 in play as well, but it doesn't actually clear. Yeah, I'm a little curious about this particular decision because it doesn't immediately at least mitigate Psychic Scream because that's not available the next turn, and it does reduce the potential impact if your opponent does say, you know, Shadow Essence into something. I guess you're unlikely to want to tear them next turn because at most Shadow Essence is giving you a 5/5. Well, it's a 5/5 you want to kill.
Yeah, but this is kind of good actually for Alliestrasza because now she has one of the most important cards in her deck, which is the Diamond Spellstone. And when that summons a big wide board and you have Radiant Elementals in the pool with Malygos and even Lyra to potentially charge things, there's some really big combo potential in Allie's hand. But does she have the time? Because even Paladin is so good at putting pressure, things like Avenging Wrath could potentially close out the game at any juncture should Allie misstep.
Yeah, and one of the big things is even just making a board of big stuff, well, there's Tarim, there's Equality. It's difficult for you to have a single board of big minions make the difference in a matchup like this. You really need to have, say, Prophet Velen or Malygos plus the Spirit Lash is one of the best ways to come back into these games, simply because you're able to just get so much life gain in addition to killing off everything on the board. Now, there are a few options here for SaltyMonkey. You know, she could go with the Tarim here and push some more damage, kill off the Velen. That does mean that Tarim is her, right now, her only tool to help mitigate another big minion coming out. She has no quality. She could just fire off Avenging Wrath or Consecration, along with using just a Divine Shield with the Avenging Wrath potentially to kill the Prophet Velen, but just does decide she's going to go ahead and fire this off with the Tarim. Has an auto defense matrix as her secret she picked up from the Hydrologist. And now, all right, well,
I mean, there's some really nice cards that Lich King could potentially pick up too. Unfortunately, the Diamond Spellstone is still in its lesser form. Needs to upgrade it twice by playing a slew of spells. And the Lich King can offer some really nice opportunities to come back, mainly through Death and Decay. That is probably the #1 card that's on her mind.
It does also potentially get Lich King into a Resurrection pool,
That's
which is very valuable with the Spellstone in hand. She has the option of also Shadow Visions, which right now could get her Mass Hysteria, which would clear off most of this board. It would likely leave a Tarim.
Yeah.
It could actually kill everything if everything attacks Tarim.
That's true. And you also get 2 more spells into the pool for the spells.
But if she misses on Mass Hysteria, if she doesn't find the Mass Hysteria, say she finds, Psychic Scream, Spirit Lash, Mind Blast, then, okay, well, she's in a lot of trouble because she has no alternate play.
Lich King also does gain health, but you are very susceptible to an equality play. Quality plus Avenging Wrath.
It would just be lethal here.
Just
If there's an equality here. That's Crystalsmith Kangor. Not going to be quite as potent.
I'm trying to look for a potential way for SaltyMonkey to close out this game. I don't know if I see it, though.
Yeah, there's no just lethal available this turn. Looks like she's going to just fire off the Avenging Wrath first.
Well,
oh, she got perfect hits there, actually.
right.
Exactly 2. She could have made the attack first to make that more likely.
Yes.
If this was what she was going
Could have
for.
traded 2 minions and then try to go for it.
There is the possibility you get totally wrecked if you do that, but it's very unlikely, especially with Pyromancer plus auto defense matrix. If things just don't quite hit appropriately.
Oh. Well, now what I like about
There's Spirit Lash. Oh, Spirit Lash. The Spellstone plus Spirit Lash hitting. If she hits Velen or Malagos, can be a really big swing here. She only gets 2 minions, though. It's a lesser Spellstone.
Too.
There's a Thalnos, so that is another possible option. I think she kind of has to go for it. That Spirit Lash is a very big draw, and this is a big moment here. That is Malagos, and that's a board clear almost, and 24 life.
Yeah, with Malagos, that still needs to be addressed.
Yeah, there's still Malagos on the board, exactly. So that was a huge swing in this game from Alliestrasza there.
Yes.
I've just been talking about how, she needs to find Spirit Lash. She needs this to actually get back into this game. This gives her so much breathing room because she was at 4 life. She's at 28 now. Now those cards like Lyra and the Obliterate in her hand, which were sitting there, it's like, oh, this is too slow. This is too expensive for my life total. These are now hugely impactful as this game continues to play out.
That's right. We effectively got a reset because the board was kind of in a neutral state. And now, Alliestrasza finally has the time to maybe go off with this big Lyra to Sunshard play, picks up Psychic Scream for additional insurance. Let's find out what's in the box.
All right, Lyra gonna keep generating spells here. Finds Shadow of Death, not so hot.
I mean, it's good against Lich King.
Shadow Visions gives another spell from the deck. Surrender to Madness!
Oh, man.
Let's do it.
The funny thing, too, is anything that you can pull out of your deck, get its stats artificially shifted, right? You have Shadow Essence that pulls it out as a 5/5, or Zarek's Cloning Guy that pulls it out as 1/1s. Discovers a Spellstone, which is very important.
Doesn't do anything right now, though. Well, she's going to see that this is going to be auto defense matrix.
Right. Does have the ability to even toss in a couple more spells. Things like Mind Blast and Obliterate are not nearly as important. Obliterate can also be used to simply just deal 1 damage. And now that she has that extra life, she's okay with taking that damage.
Right, and with
Oh!
ooh, that's
Are you kidding me? That's an amazing card.
pretty awesome. You can turn Lyra into a 3/10, take SaltyMonkey's ability to clear it off the board, finds a mind control. That Lich King in SaltyMonkey's hand may look tempting now, but could look pretty scary for her in a second. This game has absolutely turned on its head. Alliestrasza is firmly in the driver's seat now.
SaltyMonkey, do not play that Lich King. You are going to regret every second of it, but at the same time, it's not like she has many great options.
It's true, yeah. I mean, once Alliestrasza was able to find that Malagos plus Spirit Lash, SaltyMonkey just totally lost control of this game because she was really relying on the pressure. And she used the Avenging Wrath to just deal some damage, push past that Lich King, and now she needs an equality clear of this board. But then there's still a Spellstone waiting. There's still a Mind Control waiting. There's still a Psychic Scream waiting. There's just so many ways for Alliestrasza to repush, even if SaltyMonkey is able to deal with this board, and she can't do that right now.
And here's the thing, like, even if there wasn't that mind control, there's 2 Shadow Word Deaths, ready to go past this Lich King, ready to pump up that Spellstone. And you also have to just remember, Alliestrasza head on board, and that's kind of what even Paladin needs in order to get an advantage in this game. And SaltyMonkey is desperate enough to even utilize Consecration just to weaken the board state a little bit. But that's just bad news, Bears.
It looks like she chose to attack the recruit into the minion that was already going to die to the Wild Pyromancer plus Consecration. She didn't actually need the Wild Pyromancer damage to clear off. I believe it only had 2 health left once she cast the Consecration there.
Right.
So she could have either gotten the damage to face or gotten 1 more damage to the Lyra or just saved that Pyromancer. Now if she does draw Consecration, she has no way to utilize it.
That's true. She used both of her synergies, at least the direct synergies with Equality, with Pyromancer and Consecration being utilized in the turn. This is not looking good, and Alliestrasza has completely turned the corner in card advantage. Can start to swing the board a little bit. That Corpse Taker is definitely really annoying, though, but she can, in the worst case scenario, just immediately remove it.
I mean, I think that just casting Psychic Scream here is totally reasonable because she clears off all this stuff in the board. She still has Mind Control for a follow-up threat. She could just Mind Control here.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking here. Mind Control, shut down your opponent, shut down the ability for your opponent to easily remove the board with Equality.
Yeah, and the big thing here, the Mind Control, pulling the trigger Mind Control here protects your Lyra, and you still have 2 Shadow Word Deaths in hand. So if your opponent does play a big thing, you don't need to sit and wait with Mind Control for it. You could just use the Mind Control proactively. If your opponent doesn't have a big thing, great, you win. If they do, okay, you have Shadow Word Death anyway.
Yeah, and this is Priest at its best. Historically, any kind of defensive slow Priest that has card advantage just rarely loses against decks that need the board early on.
Right. Once SaltyMonkey lost control of this board, once that Spirit Lash came down and killed everything and put Alliestrasza out of the burst damage range, there's been very little that SaltyMonkey's been able to do. Even Paladin, it does have strong ability to control the board, strong ability to push damage, but it does not really have card advantage tools, and that's just everything Alliestrasza has right now. And we see SaltyMonkey's like, all right, I'm just gonna push face.
I like this. I like this attack. SaltyMonkey just realizing that she cannot win if she tries to fight for board control. She needs to pressure because she has maybe 1 or 2 more turns before it's lights out guaranteed. Oh, until that Binding Heal comes in, that is going to continue to cement Allie's board position while healing. Oh, and by the way, Spellstone's also getting upgraded.
Yeah.
This is looking like it's slipping out of SaltyMonkey's hands by the second.
And Alliestrasza, I think just mostly at this point, needs to figure out, okay, well, what's the best way to use all of these tools I have? Because I've got everything I need. It's mostly what can possibly go wrong from here? What do I do if those cards are Equality Consecration? How do I set myself in a position where I don't just get blown out by some sort of board clear? And that's, I think, part of the reason we haven't seen her just immediately pull the trigger on Diamond Spellstone. Because she already has a really powerful board, and I think she actually is just like, okay, I don't want to overdraw.
Yeah, you can see she's really caring about her hand size, and that's something that can bite her if she's not careful. Although I have to say that she's looking good almost no matter how she chooses to combine the synergy of her cards, I'd feel.
All right, well.
At this point, I'm I won't say there's almost nothing SaltyMonkey can do.
It is a pretty terrible scenario right here. I mean, she does have the ability to at least clear off the Lich King, but yeah, there's still 3 minions on the board. Alliestrasza killed her own Lyra because she had too many cards in hand. That's the sort of scenario you're fighting against, and you've got 1 card yourself.
Oh, Malagos with 1 mana Mind Blast is 10.
That's lethal.
That's
yeah,
lethal,
there's the Malagos Mind Blast plus 10 on board thanks to the Wind Fury on that Corpse Taker, and I think, yeah, Allie's just counting it out. There it is.
Allie strikes back, and that is going to be a tie series going into game number 5. And that is going to be a mage deck remaining from SaltyMonkey to close out this series and to see who moves on and who goes home.
Yeah, and we've seen how the dynamic of last hero standing can be really important. Being able to pull out a deck that you feel like has an edge. And there, it looked rough for Alliestrasza early on. It looked very bad when SaltyMonkey was able to just push so much damage early. But frankly, that's how a deck like that works. It sort of lives on a razor's edge. And once you are able to turn the corner, there's really no going back.
Yeah, the priest decks, control priests are like the ultimate Tumbler decks. If you can't handle it at its worst when it draws awkwardly, you don't deserve its best swing turns, because it has some ugly hands that you have to piece together to somehow scrap and survive. But when things line up, oh man, does it feel really good. And I mean, you just don't look any further than Brian Kibler himself. He's playing Priest half the time on his stream.
It's true, and usually they're uglier Priest decks than that one. they're not trying to Mind Blast or put it to death. They're like, I'm just going to put a bunch of dragons into play. Yeah. But Allie did get a dragon to play, appropriately enough. Alliestrasza. It was Malagos, not Alliestrasza, but
not quite the same dragon. Brian Kibler is very offended.
It's true. No, I mean, Alliestrasza, shockingly, is Alliestrasza's favorite card. So I think other dragon aspects, at least, have to be sort of in the realm of preference. But it is going to be the Priest versus Mage, and SaltyMonkey has a big Spell Mage as her final deck here, and this could be the sort of matchups that's pretty interesting, because the big Spell Mage has a lot of powerful tools, has a big powerful endgame itself, and crucially has Polymorph. That's going to be a lot of what this game is about, is the threat of Polymorph, because Alliestrasza's best way to win this matchup is a lot of what we saw last game, Mind Blast you to death. It's not going to be fighting for the board with big minions because, well, this is big Spell Mage. It's got a lot of ways to kill big minions. So the key is going to be getting those the Malagos and the Prophet Velen into the res pool so you can pull off those big Mind Blast turns. Unless you somehow just get the cloning gallery into kill you turn yourself.
Man, I am really scared for SaltyMonkey. I think that this deck moves like molasses. It is so slow, and at least if you were playing, like, say, an odd control mage, you at least had a 2 damage hero power to maybe press the issue, but you are extremely limited to just what is at the top end of your deck. Thankfully for her, she has Dragoncaller Lana, but it is a long road in order to put a real assault, and then your opponent still has, Psychic Scream, Mass Hysteria, which just shuts it down immediately.
So Alliestrasza this turn did not hero power an emote, which is the turn 2 classic Priest play. SaltyMonkey hero powered, but did not emote.
Well, so that
I feel like she's ahead.
Correct. Yeah, as you can tell, we don't have much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a build-up game where both players are just trying to build to their powerful end games. Alliestrasza ultimately has the more powerful end game. She has the ability to just burst kill with Mind Blasts. However, SaltyMonkey has the tools to pick that apart and has fairly powerful endgame herself that she's going to have to be dealt with by Alliestrasza.
Right, and I think one of the key cards, and apologies if you already said this because I was doing some early game homework myself, much like these players were also doing homework on paper. Polymorph, to remove things from the pool, Alliestrasza has to play around that and control what she's trying to specifically get in her Resurrect pool. Because unlike the aggressive matchups, you can kind of control what's being played onto the board and make that Spellstone, instead of feeling like you have to control the range of minions, it can be exactly those 4 minions you want.
Polymorph's like the only card I've talked about, Dan.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, no Polymorphs just yet, but of course that's not a card that we're going to see coming out necessarily in the early game regardless. But it is a abomination coming down simply because, yeah, SaltyMonkey, she realizes I am the aggressor in this matchup. And that's a key element of understanding control matchups, because someone's the control deck, someone's has to be the aggressive deck. And when you're the combo deck that has the inevitability in the end game, if you assemble all of your tools, you're the one who has time. So the mage is the one who has the onus of taking action, as we see SaltyMonkey deciding to coin out that abomination here. I am a little bit surprised that she chose to coin it out. She could have just waited until next turn and potentially saved coin for later for, say, another big play, but does want to put the pressure on. This does preemptively answer Lyra, which is something that her hand didn't deal with very well otherwise.
Yeah, and I really like this play, too, from just playing the Arcane Tyrant. I'm not sure if you've talked about this, Brian Kilber, but as the mage in this matchup, you want to take the board state very proactively. And what I really like about this in particular is that it can really answer the Lyra, too, which is just super crucial because of how much resources it can generate.
Are we the chuckleheads now?
We've always been the chucklehead. If you don't know that, you probably are.
It's like Rounders, right? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
If you don't know who Michael Scott is, then you're Michael Scott. And so now we come into an important juncture where now Priest actually has real plays. And good Lord, is that a lot of mana to spend over the next 7 or 8 turns. Mass Hysteria to clean the board state, which should guarantee your board clear.
Yeah, there's no way that Mass Hysteria does not clear things off. And now SaltyMonkey, she's got some daring Fire Eaters.
Yeah.
She's got a Zilliax. You can just get that Zilliax into play. Look at this clock.
Look, you got to get started somehow. And step by step, piece by piece is how you get back into it. And I do want to point out one thing, that Big Spell Mage actually has one of the better win rates from just day one metagame. Because a lot of people are out there playing fairly aggressive decks, and Big Spell Mage can prey on some of that. So I don't blame SaltyMonkey for having it in her lineup. The only thing is that it doesn't seem like it's very effectively going up against this Priest. And right now, look at what SaltyMonkey's trying to do.
Whoa!
She's leaving that Radiant Elemental on the board.
That's the sort of thing that could be really scary, because Allie could chain Shadow Visions and pump up Spellstones. And that's one of the things that's really important in this matchup, is the Priest's ability to generate those big Spellstones. It feels like the damage that you get from that face attack is pretty minimal. Maybe her thought process is, A, I need to be the aggressor, I need to get damage in. B, that by not killing this, there's nothing in the res pool, so there's nothing for Allie to resurrect. But I would be shocked if Allie was worried about resurrecting a Radiant Elemental. All right, well, this will be Lyra into Spirit Lash. Does take away the Divine Shield.
Man.
Ooh.
Another Eternal Servitude.
Yeah.
As if Allie needed any other resources to ensure that she's going to dominate the board.
And this does mean that SaltyMonkey does have to cash in the Flame Strike and the Zilliax to clear this board. And it did generate an extra Eternal Servitude for Allie, which is one more big threat. And this is, as we've been saying, a matchup that is often decided by the ability to check those big threats.
Or even just reach deeper into the Priest pool. There's other spells besides Mind Blast they can get that can combo. Holy Smite just came to the hand. How much burst can Alliestrasza put out?
Ooh, there's Jan'alai.
All right.
So this is interesting. I mean, there are the 2 Daring Fire Eaters that we see in SaltyMonkey's hand. But other than that, she is still 7 away from actually Jan'alai into Ragnaros.
Yeah, so when we see Jan'alai, it's been a new card from Roster Khan's Rumble that's been put into a lot of these odd mage decks, but without that, you have to hero power a lot in order to get there. So that card's not going to come down for most of this game.
Yep. All right, well, this does mean that Allie can definitely kill the Lich King here if she can just remove the Artificer. So she could just use Holy Smite trade in, and then if she wanted to, she could just double res, but I think resing Obsidian Statues is not necessarily what's on her mind. They're relatively tough to deal with. They take a Meteor or a Polymorph, and Polymorph, as we've said a number of times, is at a premium in this matchup.
Copying my analysis again.
But they do have a very, very slow clock. I think perhaps stronger is the possibility to Servitude into a Lyra, because it's guaranteed Lyra or. And now,
Smite,
and now Smite here. Vivid.
Oh, wow. So you can make copies of whatever you have on board? you can copy the Obsidian Statue or the Lyra for maximum cards, but then you're also going to that overdraw possibility that we're talking about. And something that we didn't mention is if she overdraws like Malikos, her burst is significantly reduced, but then SaltyMonkey can also steal it with Death Grip. So that's also something to pay attention to in the coming turns. Nice and steady. No need to rush this matchup. I like the discipline shown by Alliestrasza so far, but what's SaltyMonkey going to do in response?
Well, Death Grip, as we were saying, some key cards you can find. Lich King, all right.
That's a pretty good one.
Lich King's big, and you know, SaltyMonkey, she needs threats here. She needs to have things that can force Alliestrasza to actually answer. She could play double Fire Eater just to ping down the Lyra rather than play this Flame Strike here.
And that's a big boon also to Janelize, something that we didn't really address very much. And now all of a sudden, it's only a couple turns away.
Yeah, now instead of being 7 away, it's 2 away, I believe. Yep. She can go infinite. Stonehill into Stonehill. The dream.
Yeah, that's how you get it. You know, an army of 1/4s may get there eventually. But, you know, we could be in for a long haul, or this game could also end very suddenly. It depends really on how Allie chooses to craft her combo plan. And does SaltyMonkey find a window of opportunity to potentially force Allie to to use her removal and then time a well-timed Dragon Caller Lana to seal the deal?
Yeah, and that's something that's got to be on Allie's mind is I need to keep ways to deal with the big threats you have. And now the remaining big threats, you know, there's the Dragon Caller Lana, as you mentioned, which is the most significant one because it's going to end the game right away. And frankly, the way you have to deal with that being Psychic Scream is, well, they can draw it again and play it again. Granted that you also fill their deck with dragons, and those are a little bit awkward for them to draw through. So.
Something I didn't even realize about that's really sick with the coin also is that when you're able to play things like Prophet Valen, you can Vivid Nightmare that and then like go even bigger with like big damage, and that just stretches your combo potential like crazy, and that's something I'm really excited for.
And that I think is a big part of the reason we see Allie holding on to that Radiant Elemental.
Yes.
Because Radiant Elemental obviously could have given her a little bit more efficiency on the Lyra turn to do, you know, kind of some wacky stuff. But it's also just a way to help her close out the game. And Radiant and that coin that she just picked up from the Gargoyle increased her reach in terms of that burst potential dramatically.
The reason why I'm laughing is that a second Lich King that SaltyMonkey stole also picked up another Death Grip, which gives her another ability, or another chance rather, to steal an important card from Alliestrasza. And in a slow matchup like this, where, you know, if you're able to defuse the combo, it might come down to the fatigue scenarios. That's something that we didn't even think about either initially. Maybe the mage can just outlast the priest. Much to the dismay of the producers here in the show, because in the series, we have a schedule to maintain, and we're most likely going to go over if it comes up to that.
Yeah, Allie, you know, she has that additional Eternal Servitude. This, I think, is the one from the Lyra, and I think, I think it's actually better for Allie to have played the one that she just drew naturally, because it conceals the information from SaltyMonkey. Now SaltyMonkey knows, oh, well, there's an extra Eternal Servitude. Right. So playing the one that your opponent knows about is in your deck, I think, you know, conceals a little bit of that from them, and I think that can be valuable in this style of matchup. Well, Death Grip number 2, what's it got? All right, Gargoyle. Okay. That's not a high impact card.
Yeah, it has some uses. It's primarily a combo tool, so you can get more coins in your hand. Eventually, just cheat out a lot of spells and combos that you can't normally. Wow, what an outcome! The Obsidian Statue snipes Lich King with its dying breath.
And this, from SaltyMonkey's perspective, you know, she could have played stuff before this. She could have played Stonehill. She could have played Gilded Gargoyle to reduce the likelihood that that happens. And now, especially that she's just playing these afterwards, you know, I have to you know, imagine that she's regretting her initial decision.
She has another Stonehill Defender off of Stonehill Defender. Is there any other option?
No.
Obviously not. But someone should tell SaltyMonkey that maximum Stonehill choices is not a bounty for this tournament. It is not about how many Discover options that you can have off of that card.
Well, maybe Allie is deciding that she's trying to go for the overkill bounty and trying to, you know, stack up the Vivid Nightmare and everything.
I'm pretty sure Topsy-Turvy Priest is
37, life to work through right now, so it may be a little bit out of reach at the moment, but coming into this, the bounty was just 2 overkill. How did we actually finish a round where no one dealt more than 2 damage that necessary to kill an opponent?
It's probably because the Topsy-Turvy Priest didn't win a game. You have to win in order to get the overkill.
So, okay, here's a question for you,
lose.
Frodan. If you're in, say you're in a position in a tournament, let's say you're in the finals, okay?
Yes. Already a very likely scenario.
And you have. And you have the overkill current overkill bounty lead.
Yeah.
And your opponent's lineup has Topsy-Turvy. And it's an okay but not great matchup for your decks in general. Do you choose to ban it or not to protect your bounty lead?
No, this is what I do. I let them play it, and right before they're about to hit me, I concede.
Ooh,
they don't get the overkill.
Is that how we're only at +2?
It could be. Oh, that's kind of mean. It's denial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ragnaros can push the issue, but there are some powerful tools. And here's an interesting thing about things like cards like Psychic Scream. You shuffle in that Jan'alai, you also shuffle in the Ragnaros. You get to double dip.
Yeah. And right now, Allie, she doesn't have Shadow or Death. She does not have a way to deal with the Ragnaros, let alone the Jan'alai as well. She only has 1 death in her deck. She can try and make a big board out of Spellstone here. She does still have Malagos and Spirit Lash. So say she takes a bunch of damage and doesn't die, that can clear off most of the board, can't quite kill the Ragnaros.
Yeah, I mean, going wide on the board is historically one of the best ways to counter Ragnaros, aka the Shaman hero power. But I don't know if Alliestrasza has real good game plan after that. So if SaltyMonkey is able to manipulate the board state with her a vast array of removal tools, she could be playing directly into SaltyMonkey's hands. And the Psychic Scream feels pretty terrible, let's be honest.
It does, because you're giving your opponent 2 more Ragnaros that you have to deal with. However, SaltyMonkey may say, okay, that's both Psychic Screams. Ooh, there's Ragnaros.
Well, hold on.
All right.
This isn't wild. Top deck Ragnaros, what year am I in?
Well, 2018.
Current.
It's almost 2019.
Future year.
In case you're genuinely curious. Oh, there's Death.
Oh, big pickups.
Oh, that is a big draw here because well, the somewhat awkward thing is often what you kind of want to do in this matchup against Polymorph is protect Prophet Velen with Shadow or Death. You want to Shadow or Death it so it gets into your res pool and your opponent can't Polymorph it. But, all right, well.
Now, so here's where you can go super all in.
Now this is getting interesting.
Yeah, you have the ability to go off with double Radiant Elemental this turn and a coin.
If you're going to do that, you got to do it soon.
Yes. And then SaltyMonkey's getting to that point where Alliestrasza can't easily, she has to let Malagos and Prophet Velen die to be cheaper, but then SaltyMonkey has time to draw into Polymorphs.
Right.
So coin, which is always 0.
I was going to say, using the coin here would potentially be a problem because she needs access to coin plus Spirit Lash with Malagos in order to clear the Alana board now that there's no Psychic Screams left.
Yeah.
But she picked up that other Gargoyle here.
That's Psionic Probe, a 1-mana spell that copies. Looks like Allie's just going to hold on to it. She doesn't want to overdraw.
Right. So casting Psionic Probe here puts 2 cards in your hand. She's a guaranteed overdraw. This Blizzard will make her overdraw anyway because
coin.
Right. Because she gets a coin, and she'll now overdraw. And if she does hit, say a Mind Blast, that could be a big deal.
Well, leave it up to Sarah Chain Gang to decide how long this actually goes on with the Stonehill Defender. And for some reason, Ragnaros has a large attachment to the Obsidian statue because it just keeps dying. Or rather, the big 8/8s keep dying to the Obsidian statues. And Alliestrasza loses Shadow Essence, which is not that big of a deal considering that the remaining cards in her deck are things like Blood Mage Thaunos, which is not nearly as impactful as... obviously, Prophet.
She still has a Lyra up here. That's one of the crazy things.
Oh, and another Radiant Elemental will come down too. This can be, this could be lethal, right? If you look at it with things like
the Vivid Nightmare. If she just keeps hitting,
Like Vivid Nightmare, Double Rain Elemental, Lyra, you just have to pick up like a couple damage sources, and that's the game.
Well, she doesn't have a Mind Blast in hand right now, right? So.
I mean, every 0 mana spell could be a Mind Blast, Gibbler.
One of the problems here, if she does decide to go for a big Lyra turn, is she has to act quickly because the rope is your biggest scare. She's gonna go with the Shadow of Death.
Oh,
so,
I like this.
Yeah. So this is what I was talking about in terms of ensuring that you put yourself in a situation where you can res your Velen. All right. Well, now she's in a situation where she's going to burn a card by casting that Mind Vision here.
Yeah, I really like that. You know, Alliestrasza not going for the flashy Trollden plays on YouTube, but instead prioritizing what's important in this matchup, which is going for that big resurrect and that big finish.
Reality.
So that's one checkpoint cleared for Alliestrasza.
All right. Well, Flame Strike, and this adds 7 more armor. This is now 44 life that SaltyMonkey has that Alliestrasza is going to fight through. Cloning Gallery is actually a great burn. It's a card you don't want to draw. It's just going to clog up your hand. Her deck does not have many large minions remaining in it.
That's right.
So I believe that was 2 more spells needed to upgrade the Diamond Spellstone.
That's right, and Allie has a lot of easy ways with both Psionic Probe and Twilight's Call. I mean, when it says revive Death Rattle minions, you're talking about Obsidian statues.
Right, there's 2 Obsidian statues. Well, there's 2 Obsidian statues, or even like 3 Obsidian statues at this point. I think she may want to hold that until there's like a big thing that she just plays that into like a Spirit Lash and include with the board. Though, she may still want to hold on to that Spirit Lash in combination with Malygos as an answer to Alana.
Yeah. How do you deal with your own Malygos then, Gibbler? Like you want Malygos to die, but it's kind of you played yourself. Malygos is 4 attack, and Priest can't deal with that.
It's true. It's true. Well, you're not giving it to them. You're
giving them the opportunity to polymorph.
Sure. Yeah. Well, speaking of.
Well, I mean, she got some information here. It's like the polymorph's not in the hand. At least one of them isn't.
All right. Well, this is the Spellstone time. 4 things. All right. Well, let's do something.
There's a Vivid Nightmare. There's a Twilight's Call. You got to play something.
This is the rope. This is the problem. She does decide to just heal herself. But this does mean that this is another board of big stuff that SaltyMonkey needs to deal with. This is actually positioned pretty well for Meteor. There's no way to get the small things and the big things that you want to get with them. Like, you can kill Lyra, but you can't kill the Radiant at the same time. You just kill the Gargoyle. You can kill Velen, but you don't kill anything else with the Meteor. And SaltyMonkey, she hasn't found a single polymorph. Alliestrasza has a polymorph before SaltyMonkey does.
The irony. SaltyMonkey also doesn't have ways to build the board dramatically. Has to Meteor the big combo, but leaves up so many powerful things to the point where Prophet Valen's probably the least of her concerns if there's going to be more spells generated.
Yeah, this is a scary scenario. Mind Blast picked up.
There we go.
Yeah, well, this is not a scenario where Mind Blast is super terrifying. Oh, I actually just realized that there's also the Gargoyles that can come back from Twilight's Call. So there's no guarantee of the Obsidian statues.
Well, still a lot of power. With Vivid Nightmare can summon another Radiant Elemental.
Right.
And then you can just go off with cheap spells.
But you gotta go. And Allie, she's sitting here waiting, and I think you gotta, Vivid Nightmare that. Okay, now Shadow or Pain something for free. Okay, now go.
Yep.
Like, your rate limiter here is the amount of time that you actually have. All right.
Yeah,
I think you actually don't want to play the. Well, actually, you can play because you can actually get your other guy killed. All right, you've got coin here from the Gargoyle too.
Right, trade in the Gargoyle and then Holy Smite's burst.
Yeah, we're gonna hit the rope here.
Another Holy Smite.
I mean, that's a lot of damage.
Right, and she can even toss out one more card. You can exchange Cloning Gallery for something else, but I guess she doesn't want to revive potentially Bloodmage Thanos into the pool. There's a lot of junk remaining in terms of the minions compared to what she has in her hand.
This Meteor gets rid of every big threat. She can Meteor the Lyra.
The way it's lined up.
And there's only, with Meteor plus Ping, there's only 1/1 Obsidian statues potentially. Oh, who's that?
Oh.
Wait, what? I do not understand. Was that just
She wants her to overdraw?
Was that just mistargeted? I'm so
Wait,
confused.
that has to be a misclick.
Yeah. Because that just killed 2 things, damaged 1 instead of killing 3.
I'm baffled. How much damage is this? 10 plus 9 plus 9 is 28, 30, 35 damage.
There's a lot. And there's still Lyra. You're still getting more stuff. All right, let's go. 7 your face. What's next? Okay, 7 your face.
Yeah, it's not lethal. It's actually a little bit less than the damage I was counting because.
Oh.
Well, maybe it gets a little bit more.
All right. Well, we're out of mana, so we only got Holy Smite
Holy
for
Smite,
actual
yeah.
damaging things.
Or cloning galleries. I mean, I don't know. You can just trade into Obsidian Statue if you're worried about draw for the Acolyte. 1 attack's still the same thing.
Yeah.
I like denying card draw here.
Same. I mean, maybe the thought process from SaltyMonkey is that she wants to leave the Lyra up and hope that Alliestrasza burns key cards, but there's not really...
Maybe she doesn't think that Alliestrasza is there yet, so we've been trying to play keep away.
That could be a reason. Here.
It's very low chance that ends up lining out that way. You have to first assume that Alliestrasza is 22 cards plus the even deck because she hasn't drawn Malygos, and you have to assume that you can even force her to overdraw cards, which she probably has shown that she will try her best not to.
Yeah, and here, SaltyMonkey picks up the Cindergosa and the Gilded Gargoyle that was screamed into her deck, but none of those will do anything against the board from Alliestrasza. I think that we have found ourselves a match conclusion.
Yeah, Alliestrasza is in prime position to close this out, and I don't think there's anything SaltyMonkey can do about it. And, some of it has to be with whether or not the pig ban phase. Some of it could just be straight up the mechanical misplays that we just saw here. As SaltyMonkey simply clicked the wrong minion, and that's a big mistake you can't afford on a stage like this.
Yeah, not at all. And Skulkengeist comes down to remove nothing, but Holy Fire will remove the last of SaltyMonkey's
What was
life.
the overkill?
Oh, yeah, you could have gotten a little bit of damage in. Alliestrasza just not playing
Now that's
toward
a
those
misplay in my
penalties.
book too. What is happening, Brian Kibler? It's because she's so focused on the match, and I think in the end, what's more important? Trying to squeeze out a little bit more damage, or perhaps staying alive in a tournament, which is exactly what Alliestrasza does.
The most important thing is to BM as effectively as possible. That's what that award is for, okay?